Welcome to another edition of Just an Opinion. I'm Ralph, and I hope you're having a better day than this guy. Today I'm going to talk about one of my favorite directors. Stanley Kubrick is one of cinema's greatest auteurs. Thematically, his films span over all the main genres, but Kubrick's authorship transcends conventional film categories. He didn't just make horror films, comedies, or dramas. He made Stanley Kubrick films, and that's the best way to describe them. Today I'm going to rank all 13 of his masterpieces. I highly recommend looking at his entire body of work. My thoughts on his works are certainly subjective. I'm a little bit more drawn towards story and characters, so my list is a bit unconventional, but this is just an opinion. Number 13 is Fear and Desire. Kubrick's debut was an anti-war film, a motif presented in later films as well. But this is an undefined war, not one coming from a historical point of view. There are no big battle scenes, but more so small skirmishes. Kubrick chose to hide the violence through well-crafted editing. The film is thematically harsh, showing how war changes perception. This can compel someone towards bravery, but also insanity.
I'm really glad they let me stay. I'm not fooling. Please don't be afraid to like me. Please. That's why they let me stay. They thought you would like me.
Despite a running time of just above an hour, the film is very heavy with subject matter. This film is also a bit experimental, as this was just the start of Kubrick's illustrious career. Number 12 is Killer's Kiss. This film presents arguably the most unalloyed love story in any of Kubrick's works, but it's not without its complications. The movie blends a crime drama with an endearing tale of unexpected love.
Something's happened.
I know.
Do you know?
Sure, you kissed me.
Is that all?
That's all I saw, and I was watching.
Kubrick purposefully interrupts this budding relationships with suspense, chase scenes, and even murder. This is quite jarring, but it also deepens your sympathy for the protagonists and you're rooting for them. The audience remains hopeful that the couple can escape their previously downtrodden lives and have a happy ending together.
How are you, baby?
I'm okay.
I can't get the rope.
Be careful.
Number 11 is Lolita. This film showcases Kubrick's genius at dealing with controversial subject matter. At its core, the story involves a man in a relationship with his teenage stepdaughter. The topic is lightened, though, with many oddly comedic moments. Some of the humor, though, scales from quirky to a little bit uncomfortable, particularly with the multiple performances by Peter Sellers.
Like that. What happened to her?
She was hit by a car.
Gee, no wonder she's not here. Gee, you must feel pretty bad about that. What's happening? Is she coming on later or something?
Well, that was the understanding.
What, in an ambulance?
The movie does not overtly display the relationship, though. It is hidden within the dialogue and the editing.
In fact, I've been revoltingly unfaithful to you. But it doesn't matter a bit, because you've stopped caring anyway.
What makes you say I've stopped caring for you?
Well, you haven't even kissed me yet, have you?
Number 10 is 2001: A Space Odyssey. This is Kubrick's most visually stunning film. The music enhances the cinematography with its unique selection of classical pieces. The movie resembles somewhat of a symphony for both the eyes and the ears. The plot conforms to this idea, as it too is split into different movements. Subject-wise, the viewer is challenged with ideas of existentialism, evolution, artificial intelligence, and other thought-provoking ideas.
What's the problem?
I think you know what the problem is just as well as I do.
What are you talking about, Hal?
This mission is too important for me to allow you to jeopardize it.
I don't know what you're talking about, Hal.
This is certainly Kubrick's most ambiguous work, with much of the content subject to interpretation. Number 9 is Barry Lyndon. Ryan O'Neal shines in this character-driven piece. Kubrick divides the narrative into two parts, focusing on both the ascension and the downfall of our title character. Barry is both a victim, but also a perpetrator of betrayal.
The plan of the duel was all arranged in order to get you out of the way.
As he manipulates his way into royalty, he makes many bitter enemies along the way, some within his own family.
I will kill you if you lay hands on me ever again. Is that entirely clear to you, sir?
The pacing in this movie is very slow, but it gives you time to appreciate how meticulous Kubrick was with every single detail. Number 8 is Spartacus. This is arguably Kubrick's most ambitious work in terms of production design and scale. All of the components are flawless, with its costumes, battle scenes, and set designs. Kirk Douglas masterfully plays the title character leading an army of slaves.
Tell them we want nothing from Rome. Nothing. Except our freedom. All we want is to get out of this damn country. We're marching south to the sea, and we'll smash every army they send against us. Put them on a horse.
The movie also fleshes out the storyline from the Roman Senate's point of view, and it shows how war and politics directly influence each other. Kubrick remarkably displayed how the film is not only centered on war, but also idealism. The Senate's fear in Spartacus transitions during the movie. It starts as a formidable foe that hopefully they can fight, but then it turns into an uncompromising philosophy that will influence future generations even after he's gone.
Did you fear him, Crassus?
Not when I fought him. I knew he could be beaten. But now I fear him.
Number 7 is The Killing. Kubrick utilizes an ensemble cast for this film noir focusing on a big heist. The robbery itself has many components, each person playing a critical role to ensure its success.
Rough drawing of the tract as I remember it. Randy, you'll have to get me an A1 street map of the whole district. George, Mike, I want you to go over this thing with me, inch by inch. Bring it completely up to date. Add or subtract the slightest change, even if it's something as small as the placing of a hot dog.
The movie is excellent, as the plan is unveiled before the audience, showing multiple points of view and also timelines. Each character also has a backstory, displaying both motivation but also emotional distractions.
So what makes you think or know that you're going to have several $100,000?
Because I do, I just can't talk about it, that's all.
Not even to me, your little share.
I shouldn't have even mentioned I was going to have it. It's not that I mind.
The story is almost completely from the criminal's point of view. Kubrick brilliantly builds the suspense, subliminally getting you to root for them.
5 years have taught me one thing, if nothing else. Anytime you take a chance, you better be sure the rewards are worth the risk, because they can put you away just as fast for a $10 heist as they can for a $1 million job.
You don't have to sell it to me, Johnny. You know I'll go along with anything you say. I always have, you know.
Number 6 is Full Metal Jacket. Kubrick once again utilizes the two-part story arc, this time to tackle the subject of the Vietnam War. The first section is the more famous boot camp section. It's both humorous, but also pretty disturbing.
Do I make you nervous? Sir! Sir, what? Are you about to call me an asshole? Sir, no, sir! How tall are you, Private? Sir, 5'9", sir! 5'9", I didn't know they stacked shit that high. You trying to squeeze an inch in on me somewhere, huh? Sir, no, sir!
If Hartman comes in here and catches us, we'll both be in a world of shit. I am in a world of shit.
Lee Emery plays one of Kubrick's most iconic characters as the drill sergeant. This section is much more grounded and performance-based. The second part of the film is much larger in scale, now fully in the Vietnam War. Characters are confronted with life or death situations while still conflicted with their own ideas of patriotism, leadership, and mercy.
can't just leave her here.
Hey, asshole. Cowboy's wasted. You're fresh out of Friends.
Number 5 is Eyes Wide Shut. Kubrick's final project was a dichotomy of utopia and temptation. Early in the film, a couple exudes elegance with an abundance of romantic themes backdropped by brightly lit scenes. The music plays into this as well, fooling the audience that all is well.
Do you know anyone here?
Not a soul.
But the mood shifts towards dark and mysterious once deceit and jealousy enter into the picture. At this point, the film becomes quite unpredictable. The contrast is again enhanced by the music and the lighting. Kubrick intelligently uses the same filmic devices to elicit a reaction from the audience, but the tone sets everything apart. Number 4 is Paths of Glory. Abuse of power and acceptance of fate are two major themes explored in this anti-war film. Kubrick showed many horrors of war in this movie, but most are provoked by those that are in power. Kirk Douglas shines as the only voice of reason within this authority.
I'm sorry, sir. I certainly didn't intend to be insubordinate. My only aim is to remind you of the heroism these men have shown on every occasion in the past.
We're not talking about the past. We're talking about the present.
But don't you see, sir? They're not cowards, so if some of them didn't leave the trenches, it must have been because it was impossible.
Suspense is rampant in the second half of the film, building towards a court-martial scene and then an eventual execution. The pacing of the film transforms into a countdown of some sorts. Sadly, the film grows more grim towards the end, as a soldier's life is not only expendable in the face of combat, but also for the own ego of a superior officer.
You must be aware of the fact that the General Staff is subject to all kinds of unfair pressures from newspapers and politicians. Maybe the attack against the anthill was impossible. Perhaps it was an error of judgment on our part. On the other hand, if your men had been a little more daring, they might have taken it. Who knows? In any case, why should we have to bear any more criticism of failure than we have to?
Number 3 is The Shining. The horror in this film is most prominent in the performance, but also in the atmosphere. Jack Nicholson is amazing in this adaptation of the Stephen King novel. Tension slowly builds from the beginning, as Nicholson always seems on the brink of exploding.
Wendy, let me explain something to you. Whenever you come in here and interrupt me, you're breaking my concentration. You're distracting me. And it will then take me time to get back to where I was.
His early scenes are somewhat uncomfortable, as the foreshadowing is highly evident that a breaking point is coming soon. In terms of atmosphere, the Overlook Hotel itself is quite frightening and foreboding with its wide open and empty spaces. Kubrick utilizes many long shots with many long takes to prolong the suspense. The sound plays a role into this as well. It is often accented by echoes, exemplifying just how isolated the Torrance family is from the outside world. Number 2 is Dr. Strangelove. This film was a byproduct of a very dangerous time in world history. Kubrick made arguably his darkest film, but satirized the material, which resulted in probably his most funny movie. The plot is literally a countdown towards Earth's destruction, but US-Soviet relations remain strained until the end with comedic paranoia, arguments, and other nonsense.
Gentlemen, you can't fight in here. This is the war room. What is going on here? I demand an explanation.
This clumsy fool tried to plant that ridiculous camera on me.
Yeah, you bet your sweets, Mr. Commie. Look at this, Mr. President. This lousy commie rat was taking pictures with this thing of the big board.
The performances lighten the dark subject matter. George C. Scott is a laugh riot, and Peter Sellers returns to playing multiple very funny roles.
That Coca-Cola machine. I want you to shoot the lock off it. There may be some change in there.
That's private property.
Colonel, can you possibly imagine what is going to happen to you, your frame, outlook, way of life, and everything, when they learn that you have obstructed a telephone call to the President of the United States? Can you imagine?
Human rights. I hasten to add that since each man will be required to do prodigious service along these lines, the women will have to be selected for their sexual characteristics, which will have to be...
Kubrick made many historical films, but this served more as a cautionary tale that thankfully didn't come to fruition. Number 1 is A Clockwork Orange. This is Kubrick's most psychological and most disturbing film. With Lolita and Dr. Strangelove, Kubrick diluted the dark material with some humor. A Clockwork Orange is certainly not without its comedic moments, but it also takes a very abrasive approach to the subjects of violence, rape, and brainwashing. It is questionable whether the scenes are more horrifying when the comedy is interjected into it.
Singing in the road, just singing in the road. What a glorious feeling! I'm happy again. I'm laughing at clouds so dark.
The movie presents two sides of a dystopian setting. The first half focuses on the violent and reckless youth. But then the film takes an even darker turn as it focuses on those in authority. Their methods are questionable, to say the least, as to how they police the juvenile delinquency.
Stop it, please, I beg you! It's a sin! It's a sin! It's a sin! It's a sin! It's a sin!
This then begs the question as to whether the crime or the rehabilitation is more terrifying. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed my tribute to Stanley Kubrick, and feel free to leave a comment if you wish.